My name is Robert Jones. I was born in Pennsylvania at the old Pennsylvania Hospital, the one that was built by Ben Franklin, although I was born there a little later than Ben Franklin. And moved down here in 1979. So I've been in the South for a long time and worked for Hewlett-Packard for 25 years. And now I'm retired and I write books and give lectures. I'd been to Cooper Furnace numerous times. As I said, we moved here in 1981. And probably the first time I was there was 1982, 1983. So it's always been something I've been interested in. But as time went on and I found out more about it, I found more things to be interested in. And we'll cover one of those in your next question. I think Major General Gustavus Smith is a fascinating guy who was head of the Army of Northern Virginia for one day before Lee showed up. And he thought he should continue being the head of the Army of Northern Virginia. And he very much took a point of view of, it's my ball and I'm going home with it. And eventually he ends up being this supervisor of the Etowah Iron Company, or Cooper Furnace. And I didn't know that when I first started going there. And when I started researching it, I thought, wow, he got around. So that would be the thing I thought was the most interesting.
Good evening. It's always Sarah.
Dr. Faye, Dr. Faye.
Hey, nobody needs to listen to that advice.
I better start over. Good evening.
Good evening.
There we go. Welcome to the Bartow History Museum's evening lecture. We're glad to have you all out this evening. If you don't know who I am, my name is Trey Gaines. I'm director of the museum, and on behalf of Sarah and the rest of the staff in the back, we're glad you're here. Before we get started, let me just give you a little idea of what's coming up in the next few weeks. If you have not yet seen our exhibit on the 175th anniversary of Cartersville, which is just on the other side of this wall, it will close this weekend. So this is the night to see it, because after Saturday, come Tuesday, we're taking it down. We have a couple more spots left for our paranormal workshop on September the 6th, Saturday evening, September 6th. So if you're interested in the paranormal, it's going to be a good night. If you're an educator or know an educator in one of the local schools or regional schools, it could be anywhere in Northwest Georgia, we have an educator night with the Booth Western Art Museum on Thursday, September 11th. There's still space left for that as well. Go on to the Booth website and you can register for that. There's a theme called, what's it called, Jordan?
Raiders of the Lost Art.
Raiders of the Lost Art. Art, playing off of Ark. Jordan will be dressed up as senior Indiana Jones.
Some of you remember my Charlemagne.
Thank you. We will not have a lunch and learn in September. Normally that would have been on September 17th, but we're not going to have it next month as we prepare for our next evening opportunity, which will be 1 month from tonight when we open up a new exhibit in this gallery across the other side of the wall here on the history of cookbooks. And we've pulled out a large collection of the cookbooks we have in our collection here at the museum, and we're going to show those off. And along with that, we've got a special program, special presentation from Anne Quattrano. Anne is a world-renowned chef, Michelin-rated chef who has several restaurants in the Atlanta area, but she has ancestral roots here in Bartow County. She and her husband live off of Harley Road on Summerlin Farm, and she's going to be here to talk about her culinary journey as well as tell the family history of the Summerland Farm out on Harley Road. That's September 25th. At 7 p.m. That is a special ticketed event, so if you're interested in coming to that, I'd encourage you to go online. Those tickets are live on our website now and secure that ticket for that night. All right, well, without further ado, our main attraction for the night, let me introduce our speaker. Robert C. Jones served as president of the Kennesaw Historical Society for many years and also served as a member of the executive board of the Kennesaw Museum Foundation. The foundation helped fund the 50,000 square foot Southern Museum of Civil War and Locomotive History. Robert has written 50 plus books on various historical topics,
I was pointing to the book.
I just thought it was Sarah. On various historical topics, including the Civil War, Revolutionary, World War I, World War II, the War of 1812, and ghost towns. And I was going to do the same thing. In 2018, Robert received an award from the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution for Women in American History. And all of his books this evening are for sale. You can see them afterwards and purchase a copy, and I bet he'll sign it for you at no extra cost. Please welcome Robert Jones.
Thank you. So I got 2 bits of good news and 1 bit of bad news. So I'll start with the good news. Number 1, I am prepared to talk about the topic that I was supposed to talk about tonight. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but sometimes things just don't go right. The second thing is this isn't a real long presentation. So it's not like we're going to be here at 2 o'clock in the morning arguing over Cooper Furnace. The bad news is that wonderful book up there. I don't have any tonight. Now, if you really, really, really want it, you can get it on Amazon. Ghost Towns and Mills of the Atlanta area. And I'm sorry. I'm leaving for South Carolina on Tuesday to do a speaking tour. And I was totally focused on that. And I wasn't focused on like this one so much. And so I didn't have any with me. It's a great book though. So Cooper Furnace, I guess we can start out with the fact that how it's spelled, everybody seems to have their own version. I've seen Cooper's 'S, Furnace, and that would be okay because Mark Anthony Cooper controlled it for a long time, so it's a possessive. But I've seen people say it's Cooper's 'Furnace, and I'm not sure what that even means. And then on the signs that are there, they say simply Cooper Furnace. So I decided to go with that. Most of you have probably been there. How many have been there at some time or another? So that should be a familiar sight. This is a bloomery furnace. And I'm not an expert on iron making. I can say that this is not a steel mill, it's an iron mill. And the trains would come in up top and they could pour the ore into that chimney there. And then it would come down and you see they had bellows. Isn't that cool? Can you imagine having bellows today in a US steel mill or something? So Mark Anthony Cooper is the guy we hear most about connected with this enterprise. He's born in 1800 near Palton, Georgia.
Where's that?
I have no idea. Anybody know?
Is it still even there? Is it extinct?
Hancock County.
Where?
Hancock.
Oh, Hancock County.
120 miles away.
1821, he joins the bar, and we're not talking about a tavern here. We mean in a legal sense. And he opens a practice in Eatonton, Georgia. Now I know where that is. 1825 and 1836, he serves in the Seminole Indian Wars. 1833, Mark Anthony Cooper is elected to the Georgia legislature, and he advocates for a railroad in North Georgia, which of course, well, it eventually happened, as you can see. 1838, Congressman Mark Anthony Cooper. And in 1842, he buys a half interest in the Etowah Iron Works, which is probably the real name of what we're going to talk about today, is the Etowah Iron Works. It's certainly what they referred to it as during the Civil War. There's a picture of him as a young man. Most of the pictures you see of him, he's a little older than that. He loses in 1843 to George W. Crawford in the race for Georgia governor. 1845, the Etowah Manufacturing and Mining company is organized. In 1847, Cooper and Andrew Wiley purchased the Etowah Iron Works from Moses Stroop, which is the other name you'll hear that's associated with this. It was originally built by Moses Stroop. So who the heck was Moses Stroop? We'll get to that in a second. 1857, Mark Anthony Cooper is $100,000 in debt. And today that might not sound like a whole lot, but 1857,
A lot of money,
yeah, and you didn't want to be owing it to the mob or anything.
$1 million.
The Etowah Railroad is completed to the WA main line in 1858. So they did indeed build a railroad from Atlanta up to Chattanooga. So they had to have a place to bring the finished ore out or bring the raw materials in. So they built a railroad, which you can still see bits of it. 1860, Mark Anthony Cooper erects a friendship monument in Etowah to honor 38 friends who helped him out of his financial crisis. And that's actually known worldwide over, that these people just put their money up to help him get out of his financial crisis. 1927, the Friendship Monument is moved to Cartersville. Now, to show you how long it had been since I had seen the Friendship Monument, when I wanted to take a picture of it, like that one there, I went to the knoll overlooking the iron furnace ruins. And, you know, I got up to the top of the hill and there was nothing there. And then eventually I realized they had moved it back to Cartersville. And so then I came here, and then I had to figure out where it was in Cartersville, because Cartersville is actually a fairly big city. And I eventually found it, and there it is. 1999, approval is given to move the monument back to Cartersville. Moses Stroop, 1830, he founds the Etowah Iron Works, founded by Moses Stroop and his father Jacob. They don't name people Moses anymore. Have you noticed that? You know anybody who has young kids today that are named Moses? It's a cool name. And 1852, Stroop moves to Alabama. And that's why we don't hear as much about him around here anymore. 1859, Tan Hill No. 1 furnace in Alabama is built by Moses Stroop. And you can see it's a pretty elaborate site there. That's probably the mill that he's most famous for. In 1862, he joins the Red Mountain Iron and Coal Company and builds the furnace at Oxmoor, Alabama. So he was a busy man. So the Etowah Iron Works property is purchased by Mark Anthony Cooper. It has iron foundries, a rolling mill for manufacturing rails. And this is a big deal because, you know, rails are kind of, you roll them. And there are very few places in the South back then that could produce rolled rails. So this is one of the few places in the whole Confederacy that could do that. And of course, they built the railroad I've already talked about. The town of Etowah had a hotel, houses for the workers. It may have had a population of 5,000 at its peak. For those of you who have been there, can you imagine 5,000 people living there? Now, I'm going to end up this presentation with a look at a ironworks that still exists and give you an idea what this might look like back then. There's the Etowah Rolling Mill and Village. By the way, I wrote a book, I don't have it here today, I probably should have, on why the Confederacy lost the Civil War. And one of the reasons is they couldn't produce rolled rail.
Is that an accurate rendering?
We only have 2 renderings. So it's the only one we have. So, we're hoping it's accurate. But it shows you there was quite a lot there. Then they had a flour mill also. I like the little boat in the middle. I think that's a nice touch. Now, before they flooded the area and built the dam up there, and if you've been up there, you've probably seen the dam, there were some other ruins present other than just the mill itself. And that's one of them. And then I guess they still exist underground if you wanted to go, or under the water. If you wanted to go scuba diving, you might see them, but I'm guessing they're just piles of rocks now. And that's another one. Here's an ad from 1852. The undersigned informs his friends and the public that he has, by the cooperation of friends, purchased the edible works and will continue to operate the establishment as heretofore. He will be pleased to receive orders. He proposes to make a superior quality of merchant iron, also hollowware and machinery castings. He will also buy wheat and sell flour, and has now a superior article of superfine flour, which he will sell low for cash. So he was quite the entrepreneur. So pre-Civil War, Etowah manufactured pig iron, nails and spikes, rails, cooking pots, and tools. Now, pig iron is when you load the iron ore in the top of the furnace, and it comes down and it's heated up with a cool bellows. And then it has what they call pigs, where there's a channel that comes out, and then there's smaller channels off on each side of it, and it's supposed to look like a suckling pig. So that's why it's called pig iron. That's the only thing you remember tonight out of my talk, is where pig iron came from. During the Civil War, it manufactured cannons and cannonballs, and plus still the rails. Now, he was not happy about the next thing. 1862, control of the iron works was turned over to the Confederate government. And Mark Anthony, his reaction to that was rough. And interestingly enough, the person that the Confederate government put in charge of it was Major General Gustavus Smith, and he was appointed as superintendent of the ironworks. Now, this is a good pub question. Who was the commanding general of the Army of Northern Virginia before Robert E. Lee? And the answer is Major General Gustavus Smith. Now, he felt that he should remain the commander of the Army of North Virginia, but they booted him out when they brought in Lee, and then eventually he said, well, the heck with this, I'm going home, and he quit the Army and ended up running an ironworks. There he is. Head of the Army of Northern Virginia for one day after Joe Johnson was seriously injured, but before Robert E. Lee took command. He served in battles at Fair Oaks and Seven Pines. 1862, he was in charge of the defenses of Richmond, which, as it turned out, probably wasn't a good position to be in. In November 1862, he was the interim Confederate Secretary of War. 1863 to 64, superintendent of the ironworks. June 1864, head of the Georgia State Militia during the time of Sherman's March, which was another thing that you probably really didn't want to be, is in charge of the state militia when Sherman invaded the state. 1866 to 1870, he manufactured iron in Tennessee. In the early 1870s, he was the insurance commissioner in Kentucky. He wrote several books on Civil War matters, including Confederate War Papers in 1884, and he died in New York City in 1896. I should mention one other point on that June 1864. One of the problems the Confederates had is too many cooks and too many chiefs and not enough Indians. So here's Sherman invading with this massive army. And it was like, now I'm going to exaggerate here to make a point. My wife says I get in trouble because people believe the exaggeration. There were 47 people who thought they were in charge of the Confederate forces in Georgia. I mean, it was amazing. And Gustavus Smith was one of them. And there was a bunch of others, and they all thought they were in charge. Well, eventually you want to have one guy. And that never really happened. So you knew the Great Locomotive Chase had to get in here someplace. As you might have heard in my biography, I was on the board of directors at the Kennesaw Museum for seemingly an endless period of time. I used to have in there how many years it was, and then I stopped because I would show up at a place and people would say, well, you're a lot younger than I thought. Well, why would you think that? Well, I thought that, you were the head of the Historical Society for 21 years, so I thought you'd be like in a wheelchair or something. So I took that part out about the actual number of years. So how many of you are familiar with the Great Locomotive Chase? There's a few that aren't. So, Great Locomotive Chase, the idea was that some Union raiders, some of them civilians, but most of them Army, were going to steal a train in Big Shanty, Georgia, now known as Kennesaw. And they were going to steam that train north, tearing up railroad ties, cutting down the telegraph wires, trying to burn the bridges if they could. And they did it. The only thing is they were delayed by a day because of these monsoon-like rainstorms. Well, the problem with monsoon-like rainstorms is the bridges were all built of what? Wood. So when they tried to set the bridges on fire, they just smoldered and nothing happened. When the raiders reached the Etowah River, the Yonah, a locomotive for the short line that ran between the W&A and the Etowah Mills, I already mentioned that, right? Was sitting on the Etowah siding. And the question was, do we stop and disable it? Because that guy could chase after it. Now, in the Disney movie, it looks like it was made in the Revolutionary War, that engine. So maybe they didn't think it was that feasible. But Andrews, who's the head of the Raiders, who, by the way, is a civilian, which comes into the story a little later, he makes a fateful decision not to destroy or disable the Yonah because he's afraid that the Confederate pursuit is too close behind him. And he was kind of right. About an hour later, Fuller and Murphy arrive at the Etowah River on a pole car and immediately commandeered the Yonah. So if they destroyed the Yonah, their pursuers couldn't have come after them. And it was indeed a pole car, so it was just a little thing on four wheels, and they had a pole like they were in Venice. And now, if you've ever seen the Buster Keaton movie, The General, which is utterly brilliant for 1926, oh, geez. I mean, the trains look like they use the original ones. They're so fantastic. They show Buster Keaton, of course, is on one of these kind of hand cars. It wasn't that. It was a pole car. So they began an immediate pursuit of the raiders, who finally abandoned the general 2 miles north of Ringgold. So they used 3 different locomotives. The Yonah was one. It got them to Adairsville. Then they used a locomotive called the William R. Smith. And then finally, the one that we all know and love, the Texas, which was going backwards. And so the famous paintings you see of the great locomotive chase, the general's going forward, and then the Texas is going backwards. Well, I could talk about this for the next several hours, but I'm not going to, because that's not what you're here to hear about. Unless there are any questions on this before I move on. The raid was a total failure. They didn't make it all the way to Chattanooga. When they abandoned the train, Andrews was a civilian. Even though he had 20 guys, Army guys with him who were armed, instead of saying, let's stop the train and we'll ambush them when they come forward. There was like 5 of them in the Texas. Instead, he says, run for your lives. And they all ran away. And they were all eventually captured. So that's where having a civilian as the head didn't work out so well. But the connection with the Etowah Iron Works is that Yonah, the one that's on the siding going into the Etowah Iron Works. That's the old Etowah Railroad Bridge. I think they're going to be there a long time unless an atom bomb hits the area. And there's how America's heroes won the Medal of Honor in 1901. You can see how they tried to burn the bridges. They had some boxcars with them, and they piled up wood in the boxcars and set them on fire, and then put them in the bridges, and then they just smoldered. And I felt like that in my life before, where I felt like I was just smoldering. But it didn't work out very well. First people who ever won the Medal of Honor were from the Great Locomotive Chase. Okay. I'm going to let you guess again, because it's going to make you feel like you know what you're talking about. Eventually, Cooper's Iron Works was destroyed. Anybody want to guess who destroyed Cooper Furnace? It was in 1864, if that's a clue. William Tecumseh Sherman. Elements of the 20th Corps under William Tecumseh Sherman destroyed it on May 22nd, 1864. 1869, the Etowah ruins were confiscated by the United States government. 1885, ex-Governor Joseph Brown convinced the federal government to lift the right of seizure. Now, Joseph Brown, we could talk about him forever, but he was like a little bit sleazy. And you know how slavery supposedly ended at the end of the Civil War? They had a constitutional amendment and all that. It didn't end then, because they had this thing where a guy like Joseph Brown bought a bunch of coal mines and he needed workers for them, so he paid the state pennies on the dollar to have convicts come out and work in his coal mines. I'll leave it at that. 1887, the Etowah Iron and Manganese Company purchased the Etowah Iron Works property, but they only briefly worked it. So it kind of came back, but it didn't really. Cooper Furnace today, you've already seen the furnace is still standing. There's the remains of the Etowah Railroad cut. If you go to the top of the furnace and look out towards 41, that's where you'll see the old railroad cut is. 1950, the Lake Allatoona floods the ruins of the Etowah, and that's the end of the town. The huge iron foundry still stands. Well, it traces the old railroad cut on the north side of the river road. And there's a hiking and picnic area run by the Army Corps of Engineers. And if you never saw the dam while you were there, although it's kind of hard to miss, there's the dam. So as they said in one of the movies, if you have any damn questions, just ask me afterwards. Okay, Hopewell Furnace is in Pennsylvania. And it too was a furnace area, just like the one that used to be at Etowah. So I just have a few pictures. That was the Iron Master's house, so you can see that was a good deal to be an Iron Master. That's where they make charcoal, which is a process which hadn't changed since medieval times. When they made charcoal in medieval times, that's how they did it. There's the company store, which I thought was cool. That's the actual furnace stack. So unlike Cooper Furnace, where the furnace stack is outside, here the furnace stack is inside. But that huge complex there has the iron making apparatus in it. It's a boarding house. The workers could board there and pay rent, of course. Those are more tenant houses. It's the spring house and the smoke house. So you can see that all of that is what used to be at Cooper Furnace. Now, the last thing I had promised, have any of you heard of Bill Arp? A lot of you have. Wow. Cool. Well, he was a famous journalist. And he used to camp up at the ruins of Cooper Furnace. And he wrote about what it was like. He talked about his tent is pitched right at the foot of a mountain within 10 feet of a crystal spring that gushes from its base. He's a journalist, so he has to write like this. And then he says, men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. It's a peaceful luxury to recline in a camp chair and survey the majesty of nature and listen to her song. Up the stream and down in the coves that separate these lofty mountains are the ruins of a once happy and prosperous settlement. The immense furnace stack breathes fire no more. There's not really an immense furnace stack anymore, is there? The long high walls of machine shops and foundries and flour mills are still standing in their stony strength without floors or roofs or timbers. Pines and sycamores and blackberries have grown up inside and outside, and wild vines have covered the walls, until in many places the ruins show nothing but the huge doors and long lines of open windows. In the coves and dales along the foothills, the humble working people lived in wooden houses with massive stone chimneys. The firebrand of war destroyed these humble homes, but the chimneys are there, secreted among the trees and vines as if ashamed of the work that man had done and hiding from the light. I visited these ruins often, but find many sentinels I never found before. I found one near 30 feet in height, and it was empowered and hidden in the muscadine wines. Is that a wine? Don't they use that to make wine? Muscadine. Whose autumn fruit attracted us to its hiding place. Memory goes back 30 years when the busy hum of machinery was heard all along the narrow neck that lies between the foothills and the river. Hundreds of strong arms and cunning hands were here earning honest money by honest toil. When old Mark Anthony Cooper, see, even then they were calling him old Mark Anthony, but he wasn't always old. I was younger once. He was a pioneer of the iron business in Georgia, and had there been no war, would have left a monument more durable than marble. How grandly did the old man submit to the inevitable? How serenely did he bow to the course of events? I looked upon the stained marble that he erected and the honor of friends who had given him aid and encouragement. What a commentary about life. There are 38 notable names upon the marble, and they're all dead. The great enterprises that their money built up and nourished are all in ruins. The workmen are dead and their children scattered. But the everlasting hills are there with their mineral treasures. And the same beautiful river still murmurs as it flows. Men may come and men may go, but I go on forever.
What did you say his name was?
Bill Arp,
Bill.
A-R-P.
Thank you.
So are there any questions or comments or disagreements that anybody wants to bring up? Because now's your chance, ma'am.
So before they flooded the area, did the Corps or anybody make sketches, maps of the ruins that they were going to flood?
I have never seen any, and I have looked earnestly, and I have not seen any.
Because I know they moved cemeteries out from the way of the water.
Any other questions, comments?
Do you happen to know about the furnace, I can't remember if there's more than one, at Pine Log? What those are for? Pine Log, it's like right off of 20, between here and Canton.
No, I'm not familiar with
Okay.
those.
There were other iron furnaces, very similar to that one.
But they're smaller, yeah.
They're very, various sizes, but all basically did the same thing, just different.
Okay.
I know the one in the town called Cement is very similar to this one too. That's by Adairsville.
Travis, it's down at, right, this is across the street from, Spring Hill. Yeah. It's made the strongest cement in the country, and some of those things that are built right, it almost never came down when they were trying to demolish and build office buildings, 80 years.
And they didn't even necessarily have rebar in them. It was just the cement.
And they made it entirely different. Now you have three components you mix with the cement. And then now what they were doing then, they just had to find a limestone that was workable. They just turn it into cement and sell it. Heat it.
Any other questions, comments, ma'am?
So I've seen pictures like in the 20s where people would go into the ruins. Is there any like stories about that being a fun place to go, and like did it kind of get like a new life through that as well?
Well, I gave you the story that I had, which was the Bill Arp one.
Okay.
I'm sure there might have been others, but
When did he write that? In what time period?
1890s.
Oh, okay. AJ, was it through the newspaper? Was it a newspaper story?
Yeah.
I know he wrote for the Journal Constitution.
Oh, yeah.
Papers carry this story.
That's what he's famous for, is writing for the Journal Constitution, which, by the way, just announced that they are no longer printing a newspaper. Did you hear that? It's going to be just digital from now on.
You had up there that Cooper went into Alabama.
No,
Or was that
Ho-
Alabama?
Moses Hogan went in.
Oh, never mind.
Why did the feds confiscate it in '68? What would be the, I can't think of a reason why they would have done that.
Well, I can give it to you from 2 points of view. One is if I was a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and one is if I was a member of the Sons of Union Veterans. And those would be very different viewpoints. But basically, that close to the end of the war, this is a bad example, but it's the same thing at the end of World War II. The last thing in the world we wanted was Germany or Japan rebuilding their manufacturing capability. So it took them a while, it took 3 years, but they finally got around to this site, which still I mean, I don't know if you could make any money at it, but it still has a lot of iron there. And they shut it down. They didn't want any Southerners using it. There, I said that fairly neutral.
You covered both sides. That's good.
Where'd the coal come from?
They mine coal on the site.
Oh, they did?
And also from Dade County, where it's Governor Brown had his mine up in Dade County and brought it down by the train.
Ah,
And had the convicts probably loading the train for him.
You kind of made it sound like everyone already knew it, but how do you make charcoal? Just for, people who don't know about it?
Yeah. Charcoal is a way, it burns longer than coal does. So, boy, this is the second time tonight I'm using the word smolder. So basically you take coal and you saw that little hut, and you take coal and then it smolders like for hours and hours and hours. And then when it's over, it looks like what you do your barbecue on.
well, that's coke. Yeah, if you take wood and smolder it, it's charcoal. If you take coke and smolder it, it's coke. The reason you have increased the purity, you're driving off all the
Impurities.
salt, especially sulfur. Any kind of impurities is getting driven off. You just got pure carbon left.
Well said. Anybody else?
Does your book have color pictures in it?
Did
Does your book have color pictures in it?
no, just the cover. I could go into the difference in printing rates of one versus the other, but I won't do that here.
Well, Robert, thank you so much. Robert will be happy to talk more about his books up here. He has a great book selection in our gift shop. See the exhibit across the hall and upstairs. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.
He eat these donuts.